Today, we are going to explore the surprising truth about the meat you buy in the supermarket and how ancient preservation methods once outperformed modern technology. Before we continue with the video, remember to subscribe to the channel for more documentary narratives like this. Take a close look at the bacon you bought less than a week ago. At the edges, a grayish tint has already begun to appear. When you open the package, a peculiar smell emerges, a mixture of sourness with faint chemical notes. By the seventh day, the surface becomes slimy. You throw it away. Now, imagine a very different scene. The year is 1547, somewhere in the Austrian countryside. A farmer has just slaughtered a pig. He rubs the entire cut of meat with coarse salt, then slowly smokes it over beechwood, and finally hangs it deep inside the cool darkness of his cellar. 16 months pass. On the following Easter Sunday, his family gathers to eat that ham. The meat has not only remained safe to eat, it has actually developed flavors superior to fresh meat. So, what knowledge did that medieval farmer possess, armed with nothing more than salt, wood, and patience, that our modern food supply chain seems to have abandoned? The answer lies in what salt, smoke, and time can accomplish, things that refrigeration and plastic packaging simply cannot replicate. And there is a very specific reason why the food industry prefers that you do not understand this difference. Look carefully at the ingredient list on almost any package of supermarket bacon. You will find water. Not the natural moisture already present in meat, but water deliberately added. Industrial processors use machines equipped with dozens of needles to inject brine directly into the muscle tissue. They call this process enhancement. A more honest description would be economic adulteration. A modern cut of bacon may contain 15 to 25% added water. You are paying meat prices for a mixture of municipal water, sodium chloride, phosphates. If you spend $10 on a package of bacon, about $2 of that is water. Across an entire year, American households collectively waste $2 billion buying water sold as food. But the financial issue is only the beginning. Injected water actually compromises food safety. Scientists measure something called water activity, the amount of water available for microbial growth. Pure water scores 1.0. Fresh raw meat scores about 0.98. This is the perfect environment for bacteria. For example, Salmonella cannot grow below 0.95. E. coli stops multiplying at roughly the same level. Listeria, responsible for about 60 deaths annually in the United States, requires 0.92 or higher. Modern bacon, saturated with injected water, typically measures 0.96 to 0.97. It becomes a bacterial paradise, sealed inside plastic packaging. By contrast, medieval bacon, after weeks of salting and smoking, reached 0.85 to 0.88. At that level, bacteria, mold, yeast cannot grow at all. The meat becomes chemically hostile to microbial life. Refrigeration becomes unnecessary because the microbes have nothing left to exploit. The situation becomes even more complicated. The injected water is not pure. It contains sodium phosphate, a chemical compound that causes muscle fibers to swell and retain more liquid. You can observe this when cooking supermarket bacon. A white foam bubbles in the frying pan. That is the added water escaping, carrying dissolved proteins with it. The bacon shrinks, sometimes by up to 30%. You are not frying bacon. You are boiling injected meat in its own chemical bath. The industry has known this since the 1950s, when mechanical injection became standard. Before that, bacon was traditionally dry-cured with salt and smoked. During the process, it lost about 25% of its weight. That loss meant lost profit. So the industry found a way not only to stop the loss, but to add weight back into the product. A preservation method was transformed into a profit maximization method. Your health became the unspoken cost. Medieval farmers never injected water into meat. They did the exact opposite. They removed every drop of moisture possible. Salt acted like a chemical weapon. When meat is packed in salt, osmosis begins immediately. Water inside muscle cells is drawn outward toward the salt crystals. The cells shrink. The escaping liquid carries with it blood, bacteria, nutrients. Microbes need to survive. Within about 7 days, the meat loses around 15% of its weight. Then the farmer scrapes away the wet salt and applies fresh, dry salt. The process repeats. By the third salting, the meat becomes firm, dark red, dry to the touch. Water activity drops to roughly 0.92, low enough to halt most bacterial growth, but not yet fully safe. This is where smoke enters the process. The smokehouse was built so that smoke reached the meat below 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Cold smoke dries the meat slowly while depositing an invisible army of preservative chemicals. Wood smoke contains more than 200 different compounds. The most important are phenols, organic acids. Phenols act as natural disinfectants. They kill bacteria on contact and prevent fats from becoming rancid. Organic acids, such as acetic acid and propionic acid, lower the pH of the meat's surface to around 5.0. Most bacteria cannot survive in such acidic conditions. But these acids do something even more clever. They penetrate bacterial cells. Once inside, they release hydrogen ions that overwhelm the cell's internal chemistry. The bacteria exhaust themselves trying to survive and die. Smoke does not merely flavor meat, it sets a chemical trap for microbes. After 6 weeks, the ham was removed from the smokehouse. It was hard, nearly black on the outside, reduced by 2,530% in weight. The farmer wrapped it in cloth and hung it in a cool cellar. A year later, when cut open, the interior remained deep red, firm, perfectly safe to eat. Historical records from German monasteries describe hams stored 18 months without spoilage. Ships crossing the Atlantic in the 1600s carried barrels of salted pork that remained edible after 6 months at sea without refrigeration. The method worked because it respected the biology of decay. Instead of fighting bacteria with chemicals, it removed what bacteria need: water, oxygen-neutral pH. The result was a fortress built from salt and smoke. So why did we abandon a method that was safer, more durable, and more resilient? 3 reasons: speed, cost, and refrigeration. After World War II, the food industry needed to feed a rapidly growing population. Traditional curing required 6 to 8 weeks, too slow for industrial production. So engineers invented brine injection machines. Instead of waiting weeks for salt to diffuse into meat, processors could force it in within seconds. A machine with 40 needles could inject a ham in less than 1 minute. But injection had another advantage. It added weight. A 10-pound ham could become 11 or 12 pounds overnight. Water sold at the price of meat became pure profit. In the 1970s, consumers began worrying about nitrites. These compounds preserve bacon and prevent botulism, but they were linked to cancer when overheated. The industry found a workaround: celery powder. Celery naturally contains large amounts of nitrates. When added to meat along with bacterial cultures, those nitrates convert into nitrites. Chemically, it is exactly the same compound, but because it comes from a vegetable, regulations allow the label, uncured, no nitrates added. Consumers see the word natural and pay $3 more per pound. What can you do? You have 3 options. 1. Find real dry-cured meat. Look for labels such as dry-cured country ham. These products are salted and aged without injected water. They are darker, firmer, and more expensive, but you are paying for meat, not water. 2. Make it yourself. You only need 3 things: salt, time, patience. Rub pork belly with about 2% salt by weight. Cure it for a week in the refrigerator, then hang it to dry for several weeks. Optional cold smoking adds flavor and additional preservation. The result is dense, dark bacon that can last months. 3. Learn to recognize fraud. If your bacon releases white liquid while cooking, shrinks dramatically in the pan, claims uncured but lists celery powder, then it has almost certainly been injected with water. Final thoughts. The medieval farmer with his smokehouse was not primitive. He understood that water is the enemy of preservation. Smoke is medicine. Time creates stability. We forgot these lessons. We traded resilience for convenience. When power fails, when supply chains break, when store shelves empty, his bacon would still be hanging safely in the cellar. Yours would be rotting inside a plastic package. If this video is opening your eyes to truths the industry prefers to keep hidden, this is the moment to join the community. Subscribe, leave a comment sharing your experience with supermarket bacon, and help others discover knowledge that was buried beneath decades of corporate marketing. Because the secret to meat that lasts is not found in a factory. It is found in salt, smoke, and patience. Medieval bacon was designed to survive. Modern bacon is designed to sell.